Hello, this is a redo of the live stream that did yesterday. There was a malfunction on my end that was not confirming that it was loading. However, the video itself, I guess folks were able to watch. I don't know. But I decided to redo this, not as a live stream, but as a regular vlog. It really poured some emotions out last night. But to get started, when I was young, 5, 6, maybe a little younger, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with my mother's high heels, her dresses, her fur coat, some of my aunts. I used to borrow their high heels, and I remember there was one time I thought my parents were out, and I went in and tried on one of my mother's bras, and it's like, next thing I know is I hear, "What are you doing?" Yeah. So I apologize. Before I go any further, I want to apologize for the noise. It's the fan. It's hot as hell out. I don't have AC. But back to my story. Like I said, I was caught red-handed wearing my mother's bra, and there was something that said, now looking back at it now, yeah, I know what it was. But back then, I just thought it was something all boys did. So eventually, I started growing out of that. I just completely grew out of it all. I seem to have completely grown out of it altogether. My high school, my middle school years, they were pretty rough. I was afraid to talk to anyone as far as female gender, which I am going to come back to this in a moment. High school came, went to both the junior and senior prom. The only thing that happened, I went to the prom, went to the after party, dropped off my date, went home. Didn't kiss either of them, didn't hug either of them, nothing. I was just not comfortable around women for some reason. And I didn't know why. 18 years ago, I met my wife. This past Friday would have been our 18th anniversary. Because sadly she passed a few years ago from a heart attack. But that was one of the happiest moments of my life. To that point, getting married. We just went to the courthouse, nothing fancy or anything like that. So, we just went in, talked to the judge, turned around, got a really, really bad wedding picture from my mother's cell phone camera. I had a almost as cheesy grin as on the thumbnail and intro to this. And she was just like, but it was a happy moment. But there was still something missing. Ten and a half years ago, our daughter was born, and that was another one of my happiest moments. I got to hold her, holding her just for the first time. As a parent, there's nothing really like it. 3 years later, my son was born. The same emotions. Happiness. Pure joy. The fact that I had become a parent again. But after a few days, the depression seemed to kick back in, that something was missing. Back in 2020, shortly before the pandemic, her and I separated. And I was devastated. I had begun to hurt myself. I had called crisis assistance on a number of occasions. It was just completely and utterly terrible time in my life. It was almost as bad as when I was in middle school. The amount of bullying I received caused me to have so many evil thoughts, dark thoughts, that these particular thoughts I don't know. I mean, the only word I could use to describe is the fact that I tried to unalive myself on a number of occasions. Mind you, obviously I'm still here, so none of those attempts were solid, but anyhow, maybe I'm getting off topic. I'm still in my depressed state. I was staying with a friend, and at one point back in 2021, he and I had a encounter, for lack of better terminology. And this encounter, I wouldn't say beat the happiness I had when my kids were born, but it was very, very close. I was starting to realize who I was. I was beginning to realize that I was gay. Well, or attracted to males, whichever you want to put it. It was around that time also my wife cut off all contact. I didn't know where she was. I didn't know how the kids were. She didn't mail me anything, say that she moved or anything. Just nothing. And about a year later, which will be 2 years from tomorrow. Tomorrow will make 2 years, July 15th. Got a call from my mother saying that she had passed away. That she was found in bed. At the time, I couldn't afford to take the kids. But they are in good hands with my parents. God thank you. Mom and Dad, I thank you for helping. But what makes that whole situation worse is 2 months prior, I was also found unconscious with my prescriptions all around me. Mind you, I spent 3 days in the ICU, 10 days on watch. But I was looking back, how selfish that could have been. My kids could have had lost both their parents in 2 months. I began, shortly after my wife's passing, I began to practice Buddhism. And slowly, I began to realize all these dark thoughts that I had were necessary in order for me to have light thoughts, the pure good thoughts. Taught me how to balance my life, my emotions, my feelings. But it wasn't till about a year and a half later when, during a meditation session, everything hit me all at once. Everything that I did as a child regarding the clothes and everything, the actions of standing in front of a mirror, with my drawers down, trying to look like a girl. All of that, among much other stuff, all of that came to me in that one meditation session. Said, hey, you're not a guy. Yes, you were born with a penis. You're not supposed to have it though. And once I realized that, my life turned around. I was happier. I felt like there was a whole weight lifted off of my shoulders. I have not had those dark thoughts ever since then. I've had emotional breakdowns, but no dark thoughts or anything like that. I have been the best I have ever been mentally since October of 23. There's no coincidence. I've seen it in other trans that I've met. I've watched it on other YouTube videos of transgenders telling their story about how it affected them. It's not a coincidence. When you realize who you are, transgender, cisgender, doesn't matter. Gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, non-binary, whatever you are. When you finally come to grips with who you are, you know that your life will be better. Emotionally, mentally. So, I'm going to wrap this up here with a poem that I wrote 3 years ago. I wrote this shortly after I came home from the ICU and the watch. Is a poem entitled Rock Bottom. And it goes a little like this. I was so happy, or so I thought. I began feeling hopeless, so happy I was not. It was on impulse, 'cause I was so blue, but the action I took was the wrong thing to do. The fall to the bottom, it frightened me so. My mind then realized it was out of control. When my eyes opened in a strange new place, I still felt fear and also disgrace. That selfish act could have caused strife. The lesson I learned is there's only one life. My fellow LGBT community, allies, the baby phoenixes out there, I hope this helps you. I hope this helps you come to your grips of who you are. I hope this improves your life. If this has helped you in some way, please leave a comment in the comment section. I do get back to all comments. I will reply. Not a problem. I promise. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you can see me having fun cooking, having fun going out watching trains. Also, be the first to know when I set up a new vlog. So, I bid you farewell for the day, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.